Today's lesson is on vertical parabolas in vertex form, and it's going to be a little bit of a review section because we've done parabolas in the past. I'll give you a second to copy down the definition of the parabola here: a collection of points that are equidistant from a fixed point, which is called the focus, and a fixed line, which is called the directrix. So we do have two new vocab words. I'd like to give you a quick definition or pictorial image, I guess, over here on this graph of the parabola. What we have is the focus lies on the inside of the parabola somewhere, and I'll teach you how to find that point. That's the focus. And then the directrix is equidistant but on the other side, so 2 spaces away, which is the way that I drew it. I'll teach you how to figure out how many spaces away it is, but the line of directrix is right here. So focus is on the inside of the parabola. Maybe I'll write that. And it's just a fixed point, and the line of directrix is on the outside. So 2 new vocab words, and then we'll talk a little bit more tomorrow about how to actually form a parabola using the focus and the directrix. But right now what I need you to do is just kind of copy down. We're going to do vertical parabolas first. I'm going to fill in this chart. And the chart's not going to make much sense until we start looking at graphs, actually. So once we do our first example, I'll kind of refer back and forth to the chart. But if you've ever seen a vertical form or standard form equation of a parabola like this, we have this equation here: y equals a times the quantity x minus h squared plus k. And then remember, opposite same, so that means our vertex would be positive h, comma, positive k. The axis of symmetry is just the line that divides the parabola right in half. And it's a vertical line since it's a vertical parabola. So it's always x equals whatever the x value of the constant of the vertex is. And then depending on which way it opens, if the a value is greater than 0, which means positive, that means it opens up. And if the a value is less than 0 or negative, that means it opens down. So that's all review. And then as far as the focus and the directrix go, just go ahead and get this copied down. But once we start looking at a graph, it'll be a little bit easier to kind of understand. The focus is a point, remember, so we're going to write it as an ordered pair. It's h, comma, whatever the k value is, plus or minus p. Doesn't make much sense yet because you're like, what's p? That's okay. And then the directrix is a horizontal line, so it's the line y equals, and it's that k value, whatever the y value of the vertex is, and then again, plus or minus p. So you might be wondering, well, what the heck's this p business? Well, do you see up here that I have 2 different equations? One of them has an a in it, and one of them has this thing called 1 over 4p. And so what that means, kind of maybe make a little note to yourself over here, that means that this a equals 1 over 4p. And the p is actually what's going to help us find the focus and the directrix. So that's kind of the new part of this section. So it's a lot of review. And then just the new part is the focus and the directrix. So let's just go ahead and dive right into example number 1. What we're going to do first is find the vertex, and we've done that before. Remember, opposite same, so this vertex is going to be 1, comma 3. So it's the opposite of the parentheses, which is -1, which gave me +1. And then the same, the plus 3 just moves your vertex up or down, and it moves it up 3. So that's why it's +3. And then which way does it open? Well, the 2 in front of the parabola is positive. That means that it's going to open up. And the a value is the number in front of the parentheses. That's just 2. And so then we're going to use our little magic formula here. A equals 1 over 4p. And all I'm doing is I'm plugging in the 2 for the a. And I need to solve for p. That means 2 equals 1 over 4p. And if you just cross multiply, so you put the 2 over 1 and just cross, that means 1 equals 8p. Divide both sides by 8. That means my p value is 1 over 8. So that's kind of the new thing. We haven't really talked about what that p means or what it does. I'll talk about that once we get the graph done. But the axis of symmetry is always a vertical line for vertical parabolas. It's x equals whatever the x value of the vertex is. So in this case, it's just 1. So that number is the same as this number. And it'll always be that way. Okay, for the vertical parabolas. Focus and directrix, I'm going to do those after I get the graph done because it's so much easier to look at the graph to be able to fill in that. I don't really want you to have to memorize these 2 terms up here. I want you to not memorize. but I just want you to look at the graph to be able to answer the questions. Okay? You don't have to have those formulas memorized up there. So let's just talk about graphing this thing. So I know what we've done in the past. I'm going to kind of zoom over and focus on this graph. Is I have put my vertex right in the middle of my t-chart. And so that's going to be the same thing that we're going to do here. Vertex goes right in the middle, 1, 3. And you know you can do 5 points if you need to do 5 points. I'll do 2 just for the purpose of these notes, but you could also do -1 and 3. So you're just plugging in those points to the formula over here. So when I plug in 0, I get -1 squared is 1, times 2 is 2, plus 3 is 5. And that's going to be the same as the 2 here. When you plug in the 2, you can check the work. You can plug in the 2. You also get 5 when that happens. And that's what causes the symmetry for the parabola to go up the same distance on each side. So let's see what the graph looks like. 1, 3 is right here. 0, 5. And 2, 5. There we go. The parabola goes up like so. And again, you could get more points if you needed to. So remember that p-value was 1/8. So this is kind of the weird new thing. I'm going to zoom way in on the graph here. The p-value is 1/8, and you know that the focus is always inside the parabola, so it's kind of hard to see since it's only 1/8, but you just have to go 1/8 of a unit to the inside of the parabola. Okay, and then that means that 1/8 of a unit on the outside of the parabola is the line of directrix. Kind of like an asymptote, if it reminds you of that, because I'm doing a red dotted line. And so now let's think about what that point has to be. If that point is 1/8 of a unit on the inside of my parabola, then can you figure out what the x value is? Well, the x value is still 1. 1, how far up did we go? We went just past 3, right? But wasn't that 1/8 of a unit past 3, so isn't it just 3 1/8? So the x value is the same, but the y value is just a little bit inside of the parabola. So then let's do the line of directrix. It is a horizontal line, so it's y equals. And it doesn't go through 3, it's right underneath 3. And remember, that space is that p-value, that's what we found. The p-value is 1/8. So what's 3 minus 1/8? Well, it's 2 7/8. So you're going to have a lot of fractions for this section, so just get used to kind of having that there will be fractions, and it seems kind of weird, but that focus is what helps us find, or the p-value helps us find the focus. So that focus is 1, 3 1/8. And the directrix is the line y equals 2 7/8. Okay, that's example number 1. Let's do 2 more. Okay, so the second formula, y equals -1/2 x squared plus 5. There's no number moving this graph left or right, so our vertex is going to just be at 0, 5. It's going to open down because the a value is negative, and the a value actually is -1/2. Let's use the formula a equals 1/4p to figure out what the p value is. So again, that -1/2 just gets plugged in for a. And we're just going to cross multiply. That gives us -4p equals 2. That means that the p is also -1/2. And you know from example 1, they're not always the same. But coincidentally for this case, after solving the formula, we get -1/2. Axis of symmetry, vertical line that cuts the parabola in half. X equals the x value of the vertex, so x equals 0. Alright, let's move over to the graph. I'm going to put my vertex right in the middle of that t-chart. So I've got x, y, 0, 5 right in the middle. I'll do -1 and 1. When I do -1, plug it in and square it, I have to multiply it by 1/2. So I actually don't want to do -1 and +1. I'm actually going to use -2 and +2. That's just because I have to take half of the number, and that's going to help me avoid doing fractions. Don't do fractions if you don't have to. So I plug in -2, that gives me a value of 3, and the same thing when I plug in +2. So, once I do that, I'm just going to graph the parabola real quick. 0, 5, 2, 3, and -2, 3. And then what I'm going to do is zoom in a tiny bit. Let's connect our parabola. Let's talk about that focus. Remember the p-value was -1/2. So the reason this one's negative is because from the vertex I have to move down a half a unit to put the focus. And so that point is going to be right here. It's exactly a half a unit away from the vertex. Only reason it's negative is because you're going down from the vertex. And it should make sense too, because just remember, the focus is inside the parabola. Since the parabola is pointing down, it's got to be negative. The line of directrix is this line out here that's a half a unit away from the vertex as well. So let's see if we can figure out what the ordered pairs are going to be. What's the x value of the focus? Just look at the graph and like think about it that way. The x value is still 0, but I didn't go all the way up to 5. I stopped a half a unit short, so I'm at 4.5. And then the directrix is a horizontal line, so it's y equals. And I went just past 5, and if you're wondering how far past 5 are we, well again, the p-value is just -1/2, so we went down for the focus, up for the directrix. That's 5.5. So we got one problem left, kind of similar. I'm going to start by doing the vertex, so opposite same, 3, -1. This one opens up, the a value is 1. I'm going to use the a equals 1/4p formula. Plug in the 1 for the a. Cross multiply. P equals 1/4. Okay, it's positive, which means we're going to go up from the vertex to get the focus point, and it's an upwards pointing parabola, so that should make sense. Axis of symmetry is the vertical line that cuts this vertical parabola right in half, so it's x equals the x value of the vertex. Make my t-chart real quick. I'm going to put 3, -1 right in the middle. So I'm going to do 2 and 4. When I plug in 4, I get 1 - 1, which is 0. Same thing for 2. So graph those points real quick. 2, 0, 3, -1, and 4, 0. And you know that it's pointing up. You could get more points if you would like a more accurate graph. But I'm going to zoom in real quick and then remember that p-value is 1/4, so that tells me that's how far in on the vertex that I'm moving in order to put my p-value for my focus and my directrix. So the p-value is going to be right here, 1/4 of the unit on the inside of the parabola, and then 1/4 of a unit on the outside is this line of directrix. And so now all you have to do is figure out what those ordered pairs are. So just think about the focus first. Focus on the focus. The x value is 3. And then I didn't go all the way down to -1. I stopped short. How far short did we stop? 1/4 of a unit. So that means I went down 3/4 of a unit. So you got to kind of think in fraction terms. And then the directrix is the line y equals because it's horizontal. And it's just past -1. And it's actually 1/4 of a unit past -1. So -1 and 1/4. Alright guys, so good job for finishing your homework and following all the way through. If you have any questions or things that you need clarification on, circle them, star them, highlight them in your notes, and make sure you ask first thing tomorrow. Have a good day. I'll see you later.